Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, here for your nightly recap of what went on in true crime today. So, if you don't have as much time as you would need, because there's so much crime and not enough time, come sit down. I'll catch you up. Let's go. All right. A lot of court happenings today. Some more Susan Morphew, and then there was a really allegedly bad guy caught today. His name's Jason Billings, and this was in Baltimore, Maryland. And I don't know if you heard of this case. I watched a long deep dive by Gisla K of Grizzly True Crime. Shout out. But if you don't have a couple hours to watch, she does do a really nice job, which I need to learn how to do, of time stamping her lives. But she does these very well researched deep dives. And she caught me up on this case that happened in Maryland. So this guy, Jason Billings, first of all, he had been in prison for the R word, violent, first degree R. Had gotten, how many years did he get? Like 15, over 15 years. But Maryland had this system. Basically, if you weren't a violent murderer, mass murderer, you could every month for these SA type people, even if it was violent, they could get 20 days taken off their sentence each month. So almost like do a month, get a month off, which is basically cutting your sentence in half. Which, if you were a nonviolent drug addiction type, a nonviolent crime, then I can see where that might be helpful. But if you were a violent person, so he only spent 9 years in jail or something instead of, should have been almost 20, because he behaved himself when he was behind bars. Anyways, he gets out, he gets a maintenance job. Apparently, this past weekend on Friday, he unalived this woman who was only, I believe she was 26. Her name, her name is, and I have to look at my little writing, Pava Lapierre. She's a tech CEO of a company called EcoMap. I'm staring right to my lap. Yes, 26 years old, which is always makes great YouTube, right? And I just stare right down. You can see the top of my head. Anyway, she was found on the roof, which is really sad because Gisla was going through her Instagram, and I guess she took lots of pictures from her roof in downtown Baltimore. She could see out to where the water was, and she could see rainbows, and she would take pictures, and she just seemed to have a really good heart. Anyways, what happened, I guess, was she had gone to she was in the vestibule of her building, and somebody was motioning to her to the glass door, come over here, and said something to her. And they can see on the video that it looks as if then she let him in, because he must have said he was there to see somebody, or he forgot his key. And she nicely, without any prejudice or anything, just let him in and gets into the elevator with him. And that's the last she's seen before she's found on the roof. She was, with her throat. She was beaten with a brick. There was a bloody brick up there. Her shoes were off to one side, and she was partially unclothed, and they didn't say anything about an SA attack. But the Tuesday, I believe, before that, he had been a maintenance man in a building it was outside of Baltimore in a local suburb, where he took the girlfriend and for repeatedly arred her, then set her on fire, set her boyfriend on fire, and then tried to, I think, slit her, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, this guy is a maniac. And just because you can be, I don't know. So there was a press conference today by the acting, I believe, police chief, and they didn't really get into the bad decision of how this guy got let out. Hopefully they're going to address that kind of thing, hopefully. because that's really scary that they can let out a violent criminal, and the minute he gets out, instead of having to spend, it was in 2015, I think he was sentenced. I mean, he should have been in jail at least until 2030, but he gets out and then just wreaks havoc. And this young lady, all she did was she was nice enough to open a door for somebody to get into her apartment building. What do they say? No good deed goes unpunished. And not that you should, but don't hold doors for people to get in locked doors. That's the reason there's security there. And it sounds horrible, but if they don't have a key, you got to say, I'm really sorry. Can I call somebody for you? You don't let them in. And you don't ride in elevators with them. But we're not going to victim blame. It wasn't her fault. She was just a nice girl, lady. I mean, 26-year-old, that's a baby to me. So unbelievable. So Jason Billings, they did finally get him. They have him in custody now. I mean, hopefully they don't let him out again right away, right? So we'll hear more about that. But he was arrested. So overnight on Wednesday. So that was good. All right. Trezell and Jacqueline West. Do you remember them? They were sentenced today. Now, only for the older boy were they able to reach a verdict. There was a mistrial. They couldn't reach a verdict. And I guess they're not going to go ahead and try to retry that, at least not right now. But I do believe when there's a mistrial, somebody was online saying that they won't redo it. Well, maybe they'll choose not to redo it. But if the boys' bodies are found, I think a mistrial doesn't mean you can't try again. I mean, a mistrial is that one didn't work out. So they could re-prosecute for the younger West boy. I think Orson was the youngest, or Orrin. It's very hard when people name everybody with the same letter. At least if you have dyslexia, it's hard. All right, so they got 15 years, yes, each. And I guess the Jacqueline's lawyer, who, if you heard during the trial, she was a good lawyer. She was trying to get her probation. But the judge was, thank goodness, he was like, I'm not having that. So 15 years each. And then they got 4 years that has to be served not concurrently, consecutively. So concurrently means like it would be part of that 15 years. This consecutively means after, like one after the other. So 19 years before they can be held, it's 15 years to life. So with that 4 years tacked on for each of them, they won't get a chance at parole until 19 years, a chance. And, when that 19 years comes up, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people from the biological family to maybe even Duty Ron or lawyer Mystery Maven going out there. And her name is Jess. She's got a channel here too. And she basically was the only one covering the trial gavel to gavel. And let me just tell you, I mean, it had to be done after a time. I think it was only I don't think we could see it. You can only hear it. But Jess really covered that trial fantastically. Anyways, I'm sure people like that will be there to show up and go, these people showed no remorse. They had children, seemingly for profit. And when their profits, the cash cow died, they didn't even tell anybody. That's what it looked like anyways. And if you remember, the boys were missing during the pandemic, the first year, during 2020. At the end of 2020, they reported them missing right before December 21st, around December 21st. And they were in Cal City, that they had moved there. And the whole trial was like, one of the boys never even made it there. And the other boys seemed to have disappeared right after that, which was harder for people. The other siblings in the house couldn't really say what happened. Whereas with the first son, with the first older boy, their biological son was in the room when the child was throwing up and seemed not to move, and was kind of told, like, we can't tell anybody. Do you want to be taken away too? Which is a wonderful thing to do to a child, right? Make that their responsibility. Anyways, that happened in September of 2020, and then they moved, and then in December they said that, oh, the boys just ran away. We don't know where they went. Like they were going to play that off. But it did not go well for them. So we'll check in with them in 19 to 20 years. All right. Do you remember Taylor Shabusiness? And by the way, I always thought her name was so funny, Shabusiness, like it's none of your business, Shabusiness. Yeah, she like legally had her name changed to Shabusiness because meth will make you think anything is funny. And being on meth will apparently make you in the middle of drug-addled sex, throttle your boyfriend, and then cut off everything and every part of him. It was no excuse. I mean, the drugs seem to have really, her brain is gone. She acted like a fool in court. She attacked her lawyer one time. She just has no control. She's insane. I mean, but of her own accord. Anyway, she was sentenced this week on Tuesday, and yeah, life, no parole. What a shocker. I mean, and she's 25. 25. And this happened in 2022. So she was only 24 when it happened. Shad Trison was her boyfriend, and his dad forgave her. He said how sad he was to have lost his son, and he feels sorry for, it was just, you guys, all kinds of depressing. And all I can tell you is, you think crack is whack, meth will ruin your life. Don't do bath salts, which I believe it's what meth. She ruined her life. She ruined his life. She killed him. It's just unbelievable. Meth will ruin your life. And not that she didn't have any self-responsibility, but come on. Yeah, we've heard stories about meth in some of this other stuff, and it leads to very violent attacks. So, okay, donor cycles, great. All right, and then the last little thing we have about just an hour ago in Cali. So let's see, about an hour and a half now. They came down with a jury verdict in the Amy Harwick murder. Amy was the sex therapist who you may have known dated Drew Carey, was engaged to him, I believe. She lived in the Hollywood Hills. She had all kinds of clients, had been on all kinds of talk shows, was known as very reliable, like relationship therapist in Hollywood, and had gone out on February 14th. And when she came home, a guy that she had dated 9 years before, who she ran into like earlier in the year, unexpectedly, and it sort of reignited his obsession. Yeah, he had broken into her house. He said he just wanted to talk to her, which is weird because he had a lethal vial of nicotine with him. And somehow there was a big fight, and she fell out her third-story balcony window. Sounds more like she pushed shut. But anyways, oh yeah, and she had a little around her neck before that. So you be the judge. Oh, anyways, they were the judge. Yeah, he's guilty. Purse holder will not be holding anybody's purse anymore. No, Gareth, if his name is Gareth purse holder, 45. Life is ruined. His sentencing will be on December 6th. So the Wests were sentenced. It takes sometimes in states, that's California, both the Wests, they were sentenced in February of this year. And they were found guilty and just recently sentenced. And in this case, sentencing is going to be December 6th. So that gives them time, I guess, to do the mitigation phase. So, and the mitigation is when they talk to, what you did, what you didn't do, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Last. Oh, only 15 minutes in. We're doing great. Let's take another drink. Do you have a drink? We need a drink after talking about all those fools. All of them thinking they were solving a problem created an even bigger problem for them. Well, the West, probably from the minute that all happened. But speaking of problems, okay, so Suzanne Morphew, our mom who went missing on Mother's Day, a beautiful 49-year-old, for seemingly every description, the sweetest lady on the face of the planet. So we talked about yesterday, her body was found, and it was insane. Everybody was so excited. We found out she was found on Friday. It was, she then on Wednesday was identified. And then everybody found out about 2:40, which was almost like 4:40 Eastern Standard Time, but it was Mountain Time, because they found her in this area that is about 48 miles south of Salida, almost straight down from Poncha Springs on I think it's 265. So here's something that's kind of interesting. So I was watching a couple of programs. Number one, you may hear this misinformation, or it's not purposefully misinformation. There's a misunderstanding. They said there were other remains found with Suzanne. I heard that on the Surviving the Survivor tonight. The misunderstanding there is, so number one, and everybody's all concerned with why was CBI, which is the Colorado state, it's the state's FBI type agency, the investigative agency. What were they doing? Did they get a tip? Did they hear about this? Was it about Barry? Okay. They said it was an unrelated case. If you Googled people missing around Moffat, which I'm not saying that right. It's and it's not Sagui County. It's a Native American tribe word, and it's not Sagui. I'm saying it wrong. But this county, which is right underneath Chaffee County, because it's within 48 miles, right? This county has there's a Sagui Peak, there's mountains there, but then it drops down, there's foothills, and then there's like a deserty area. And then in the southeast corner, there's the Great Dunes National Park or Reserve. So in this town next to the dune area, so outside of the mountainous area, south enough that you're outside of where the mountain foothills are, but right into, it's like dry, arid, sort of with alfalfa and sage growing there. They were looking for a woman named Edna. Oh, is it Quintero? And Edna was 55. She was from the Moffat area, was staying there at least, and had wandered away. She had a medical condition. They were worried about her. This was this past May. Speaking of weird, right? Like, because May was when Suzanne went missing, but that was in 2020. They had been looking for this woman all summer. In July, if you look up, you will find that remains were found while they were searching for Edna. They were of a man. They described like his waist. He must have had his clothes on, his jeans. It was skeletized, but they could tell it was a man. They had the jewelry of the person. It turned out to be a man named James Montoya. And he was from Lakewood, Colorado, which is just outside of Denver. And that is 3 hours away, which is weird. And he was found, though, he wasn't found near the town of Moffat. He was found more northern, not quite to the peak, but in the foothills of that mountainous region, like 20 miles out of town, but still in that county. So they were looking up in the foothills for Edna. Now, they continued to search around Moffat, and that is why in September, when they were still looking for Edna, they found more remains, the second remains, while looking for Edna. So Edna has not been found. Edna is still missing. And the two sets of remains were not found together. One was found July 28th up in the foothills, and then Suzanne's remains were found somewhere. And everybody online has different, like, people are like, oh, it was on the west side of 17, just north of the city of Moffat. And then some people also like, no, it was southwest of Moffat. But let me just tell you, let's think back, run back in our minds. Do you remember that the bobcat that Barry had its telematics were like not working for, like, seemed to be interrupted or turned off, but also there was a new blade on his bobcat. So where did the old blade go, right? What had happened? Why did he need to replace his bobcat blade? If you remember, Suzanne went missing May 10th, but May 10th is early. And they live in Salida, and the elevation of Salida is over 10,000 feet. They're in the Rocky Mountains, if you look on a terrain map. So May is still frozen up there. It takes until July to get, the ground is frozen. So let's just say hypothetically, you unexpectedly caught your wife on a phone call with a guy, and she, like the week or two before, had said that she wanted to divorce your ass anyways. And, you're like, what the hell? And she's like, Barry, I told you it's over. Oh, excuse me. This is hypothetical. Honey, it's over. Like I said on the phone, let's just be civil. And instead, he decided to get his trank gun and chase you around, shoot you. You go in your bedroom, lock the door. He has to crack it open and leaves a crack in it. Hypothetically, this is all allegedly, just in my imagination, a hypothetical. Anyway, you need to get rid of the body. What are you going to do to get rid of that body? Well, you're going to dig a hole, right? Probably at some point. Yeah, but you dig and your blade keeps getting, like, it F's up your blade because it's too cold. Can't dig past, like, right on the top of the ground. What are you going to do? You're smart. You're a hunter. You're like, okay, I got to get out of these mountains. Where's the nearest place I can go where I can dig? Oh, let's see. I need a lower elevation, but I need to stay, I can't be gone. I don't have a lot of time here. Closest place, straight down 265. I'll go to Poncha Springs, head south, get down there quickly. It's sandy because the great sand dunes are down there. I'll be able to make a hole there. And so there's also a hardware store down, going towards the actual town of Shugui. It's like Shaway or something like that. But anyway, maybe he went to that hardware lumber place before. Maybe he knew that area a little bit. It wasn't that far away from his house. Or maybe he's just smart enough to know, I need to go where the ground is going to be softer so I can do something. So because they said Suzanne's bones were found in a shallow grave, but then they were scattered. So if they were scattered, how do they know they were found in a shallow grave? Do you think maybe, I'm just thinking, do you think anybody who loved anybody, even if they were a narcissist killer, jealous person, and accidentally did something and was so upset about it, even if they did the worst, don't you think they would still tie her up in a sheet? Like, if it happened right at the pool, did she run around? Did he have enough balls to take off her bathing suit? Where's the brown towel? Those were the missing things. Her bathing suit was missing. The brown towel was missing. And they thought some bedding from Mallory's room, I believe, was missing. So I'm just thinking, I don't think he put her in the ground naked. I don't. He seems to have been somewhat religious, even if he thought he was meting out his own religious, whatever. This is, again, all my speculation, all allegedly. But I'm just wondering, from everything I know, which granted isn't a lot, right? Because I'm just like you guys. I'm just somebody interested in true crime who's read a lot of crime and fiction, in, watched everything about true crime, but that's just, it's not a profession. But they always seem to say that when you love somebody, you cover their face, you cover their body. I think he would have buried her tied up in something, and that's how they knew it was a shallow grave, because maybe the bones were scattered, but they led back to like uh if she had been tied in, in a sheet, like you've seen bodies tied up, right? Like when they talk about the plague or something and people are all tied up. If an animal went under and got to it, because I still think that it's 7,000 some feet there, which isn't super low, and it's still May. I think he could have dug better where he dug out there if it was him or whoever did it. But I still think you couldn't have dug very far. And I don't think he had a lot of time, because the last ping supposedly on Suzanne's phone was 4:30 in the morning, I believe, between Saturday and Sunday. And that would have meant, and it was I think it pinged around Poncha Springs, which is at the top. It's west of their house, but north of where you'd go down to Moffett. Did he turn off her phone as he was making the drive down? Did he destroy it? Did he take out the battery? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to know, what was she buried with? Were there any clothes remnants nearby? Was her phone nearby? It's going to be very interesting. And by the way, when we all talk about, people are like, yeah, but it's reported again that she went on a bike ride. Do you remember in the Murdaugh case? And everybody's like, we know exactly when they died because their footsteps stopped walking, their phones went dead, they never made another call, and both of them were big and using their phones. Suzanne Morphew never did anything on her phone after that last call to Jeff Liebler at 2:30 something and Saturday afternoon. And Barry was like, hey, you home? Hey, what's up? So she had been active. She took a picture of herself. It was a warm day, so she was by the pool, and she took a picture of herself, a cute selfie, and sent it to Jeff. After that, she didn't do anything else on her phone. And her best friend's daughter was getting married, and they were doing it remotely, I believe. And I think it was Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. It was really weird that all of a sudden Suzanne just disappeared, and she was on her phone regularly. So it's weird. And she didn't go for a ride the next day, because why wouldn't you be on your phone at all? You wouldn't even check out the route. You wouldn't check out the weather. You wouldn't call anybody. You wouldn't do anything Sunday, and then just get on your bike. See, that's the thing that doesn't make sense. We know her phone stopped its use after 2:30 on Sunday or Saturday. So that is probably more likely around that time when something nefarious happened. So the fact that it pinged, though, not that she used it, that it pinged at 4:30 that morning on the route that would take you down to Moffett. I'm not saying he went down that way. I'm just saying that if anything happened and whatever happened, and then he freaked out, and he had Saturday to think about it, and then realizes he's got to put this plan together. He's got to go to Broomfield early by a day and just be like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And when he went to Broomfield, he said he left his house Sunday morning, like at 4 or 5, and drove there, and then was throwing things away in 6 different places, and then went and slept all day because he was tired from whatever he did all during the night. I think he first went down. He could have. Anyway, we don't know, right? We don't know. We don't know. We don't also know if Suzanne was at first buried somewhere else, then maybe we don't know. And we don't know that Barry did it. That is all allegedly. Just like allegedly, Iris Eaton is in love with Bear Bear. Yeah, I didn't know she kissed him at a certain point. But here's what I know. She's acting like a girlfriend, not a lawyer. And I would love to know what her ex-partner Drew thinks about her obsession with Barry Bear. That's what I would like to know more about. Drew could tell us. Anyways, okay, that was 30 minutes. You guys, it's just the case. It was near and dear to a lot of our hearts because it was so insane and it was so clear that something was wrong. And the fact that that trial went nowhere. If you, hey, if you like and subscribe, you can look on my playlist. I have a lot of uploads about Suzanne Morphew, especially right when it happened, because that's about it was the anniversary of her gone missing about when I started my channel. But I had followed the case very closely and the trial very closely. In fact, I called the fact that they should ask for, and people are saying it was dismissed. It was not dismissed. They withdrew it. The prosecution, the judge didn't dismiss the case. They were in the middle of a preliminary hearing, and Linda Stanley and the prosecutor, they withdrew, and they said he could go. They no longer wanted to prosecute him because it had gotten so screwed up. So they were in a much better place after that, especially if they found the body. So I think this case is, I think it was good to pull back, like I said back then, and try again later when they had more evidence. And I think if he did shoot her, if she is found in her bathing suit, if the brown towel is there, if a sheet from Mallory's bed is there. Remember, he was doing laundry because the girls said somebody was going to come spend the night with them, or whatever he said. He had a lot of stories. Beer's got a lot of stories. Anyways, you guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Let me know what you think about Suzanne Morphew. Are you glad? Do you think that 15 years to life is good for the Wests for what they did? I don't know. Those poor babies. They would like their bodies to be found so they could bury them. That's awful. Yeah. What do you think? Justice seems to be getting served though lately. People are going down. So maybe karma is going to come with the October 14th solar eclipse. Anyways, bye. See you tomorrow.